They're still
I'm really glad I signed up to attend virtually because
Well, after today, you'll be fine. It was just
All
this
right,
morning.
Sheila, can you hear us?
I would have been lame.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can, yes. All right, the time is 7:01 PM and I will call this meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Reichel,
Here?
Pro Tem Hanrahan,
Here.
Trustee Brittenall,
Here.
Trustee Klassen,
Here.
Trustee Engelhardt,
Here.
Trustee Poston,
Here.
Trustee Siebert.
Here,
All right, may we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, be seated.
It's been so long since we talked.
There's Attorney Sawyer. All right. All right, the first item on tonight's agenda is public comments. Persons desiring to make a public comment on items not on the agenda, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to non-agenda items?
No, Mr. Mayor, I did not hear from anyone.
Okay,
I do not show anyone with raised hands.
thank you. And then, let's check the sign-in sheet.
we have two individuals signed in, but they are both here for the River Run discussion.
Okay, is that, everyone's here for River Run? Okay, all right. We'll talk about conflicts of interest, okay. So seeing none in the chambers, we'll move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains the minutes of the April 14th, 2025 Board of Trustees meeting, the approval of the intergovernmental agreement with Garfield County for mosquito control for 2025, and a proclamation recognizing April 18th, 2025 as Arbor Day. Would anyone like to discuss any of those separately or make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Trustee Seifert to approve the consent agenda, which was seconded by Trustee Clausen. All is in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do any board members have any conflicts of interest with agenda items tonight?
No, sir.
Okay. Does board or staff have any agenda changes this evening?
We do not.
No, sir.
Okay. Then moving right along, the next item on the agenda is the branding website design assistance, and I will turn this over to Manager Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight we have Krista Pontius here in attendance. She is a consultant that we're hoping to bring on that will help us walk through a branding exercise to help define a little bit more about the town of Silt that will lead into ultimately the redesign of our website. Ms. Pontius would work for us on a retainer basis while we go through that process, and the estimate of the total cost of the gross project is between $80,000 and $100,000, and that's including the hosting and actual website design phase. The first part of this project would be the branding exercise, which will occur over the next 4 to 6 months, and the cost of that will be approximately $30,000. That's kind of the first phase in the project. The reason that we include the website design services or the consulting side on that is because a lot of what's going to happen during the branding exercise is going to run parallel with how we're going to design a website and what that's going to look like and the components that are going to go in it, et cetera. And with that, I'd like to invite Ms. Pontius. There she is. She moved up to the table, and I don't know if you have any questions. You can ask me questions first, but Ms. Pontius comes with a rather lengthy career in advertising and has worked with a lot of branding type work. She's located out of Grand Junction, so she's relatively local. I think from a relationship standpoint, we've had some rather good calls in working towards a process that we would go through to get us to that next step and then on to the third step, which is really getting a new website.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks for the introduction.
Well, thanks for being here. I would just ask you for some feedback after listening to some of the
Sure.
comments we've made, an
Sure.
overall overview, summarizing what you've heard from us all here so far.
Well, thank you for including me. I think number one, what I heard is that it's perfect timing for what Jim and I have been talking about. I greatly appreciate being included in the conversation tonight. The main thing that I heard is that it's great timing. Jim and I were talking about the overall project, and he mentioned that you had this meeting tonight on the 28th, and I said, oh, please let me come if it's okay. And he did, and I like what I'm hearing. I think that it's sort of, I can tell that the brand hasn't been addressed for a while. And I think that addressing what the town is and who the town is at the same time as you're addressing brand is perfect timing. So, that's my main thought. I like many of your ideas about what the town means to you. I had made the comment about walkability. And that comes from, living all over the United States in a lot of different towns. And that's sort of personal, but what a town comes down to mean to me from a personal and professional perspective is livability. And, the ability to walk and not have to park to get everywhere sort of segues into the fact that it's a small town as well. And I like that. I love the facts that were made, or the distinctions that were made on how the river experience is different. I'd really look forward to digging into that. I think that in a project, the main thing that I would like to do is strike on the idea of the fact that it's a small town. And what does that really mean? How do we define that as being, more than words? And how do we bring that into a brand? But overall, what I had said to Jim when we initially met is that a brand is a sponge, okay? And if you don't fill it, it's going to be filled in some way. It's going to be filled by outsiders' perceptions. And so when a brand, you really need to occupy your space and occupy your own brand and fill it up with what you want it to be, if that makes sense. And so, those are some of my overarching theories, and that's what I would love to do for you in a project.
Thank you, Mrs. Pontius.
Anything else?
Trustee Clausen?
No, my only thought, it's more or less for Jim. The cost, I'm assuming we have, funds in it, or could this be split up over more than 1 year?
It's going to depend on how quickly we move through it, but some of it will probably be split between the 2025 fiscal year and the 2026 fiscal year.
Oh, okay. All
So
right.
it's not all going to come out of this year.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And 30,000 is branding, and then the rest of it, we've got Mayor Pro Tem to keep you in check about how the website design is going.
Apparently I was singled out in the
I
agenda.
apologize, but there,
And I joined the chorus.
One of
Ms.
us has a
Pontius
full
threw
time.
words at me like Web 3.0, and I'm like, okay.
I actually don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to any of that, so I guess I'm just going to rely on you rather.
Do we want to talk about Web 3.0 or just basic
Please,
web
no.
designer?
No,
Not yet.
I think it
Not
makes
ever.
a ton of sense that whatever branding we're going to do is going to go into the website. So I just look forward to seeing what you have. I think you're right about the timing, but we're also maybe figuring out what we're going to be as we're growing.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can have some flexibility in there.
Absolutely. The other thing that I enjoyed hearing about was the fact that you're addressing the comprehensive plan. I think that's, it all, as Jim said, a lot of it parallels, and it certainly does.
Merging.
Yeah, because I think that what you do with the comprehensive plan is actually going to largely determine what your brand becomes. And so as we talk about branding, it's not static. right? It's not just, for a moment. I had heard, Chris, somebody's lived here for a really long time. Is it you, Chris? Okay. So looking at where the town, how long have you been here?
37 years.
Okay, well, so looking at where the town was, 40 years ago and how it's developed and the way in which you want it to develop, I think is a part of the brand exercise that's very valid. And then looking at what's going on with the comprehensive plan and how those plans, in your estimation, although, the saying goes, the best laid plans, and then maybe something different happens. But if you look at what's going on with the comprehensive plan at the same time as the branding, I think that makes a lot of sense too. Because as you fill up that brand sponge, you can look at the realistic nature of, are we going to set up a brand to develop the way that we say it's going to? And if your comprehensive plan is in line and you can have some reasonable expectation that you're going to grow in the directions that you intend and not just go off kilter and grow in a different way, that's great. So all these things happening at the same time, I think, is valuable. Anything else? And there's nothing stupid about web design. There's no stupid question about web design. It is perfectly okay to ask about what Web 3.0 entails. Anything with regard to web, please don't feel silly asking any questions whatsoever about it.
I guess my question would be, have you helped a town brand, or how would you compare a town to a Fortune 500 company? 'Cause
Oh, boy.
We're like a Fortune 1.0.
Yeah,
company.
no,
Yeah.
well, okay. Let me tell you this. I don't know if anybody knows. I'm sure you've heard of South Park. So I used to live in Fairplay. So Fairplay is probably a little bit smaller than Silt. And I was the event sponsorship. It was called the Event Sponsorship and Development Director, but I brought events into Summit County, Breckenridge. And so, I have been very, very close to watching a brand sort of grow and become what it is and change over the years. And I care very much about Colorado. I've lived here for about 22 years. I left once and came back because I loved it so much. So I have worked on some large brands, but I've also worked on a number of Colorado brands and Colorado tourism brands like Breckenridge. Another Colorado brand that I've worked on is famous for saying, we want to be big, because they're little guys, and that's Good Times Restaurants. So I don't know if you're familiar with Good Times, but that was a brand of mine in an advertising agency that I worked in. And then when I became a consultant, we actually took Good Times with us. So, a smaller Colorado brand is definitely within my purview.
All right.
I'm excited to see what transpires. I also hope that we honor our roots, and we, we still have a town image that the people who have lived here for 30 years think is cool and accessible.
That is very important to me. And in terms of, and Jim knows this, but, my approach is to go at it with discovery. And that's really why I wanted to be here tonight. I call it immersion. It's like if you're learning a language, you immerse yourself in that culture to learn the language. The sooner that I could get up here and be with you and sort of be in town, that's really important to me for listening and beginning to understand who you are. I don't want you to tell a different story. I want you to tell a story of who you are and a little bit of who you want to be. But, where you're coming from and who you are is, pretty close to being sacred to me in terms of a town. I come from, just as an aside, a very small town in Indiana, a small rural community. And so I've always been, even though I've lived in, large cities, I come from a small town and I understand, sort of how it feels and the sense of pride and the sense of community. So I think that's going to be central to what the brand becomes.
Very good.
I have a couple of questions. Is it
Sure,
my turn?
please.
I got one more after you.
Okay.
You want to go first?
You want me to go first?
Because mine are kind of interwound.
Okay, I'll go first.
Please.
All right. I don't do website design. I don't do branding. I don't do that.
Okay.
How much of this is what I'm going to consider personal effort put into it versus everybody wants to do everything with AI now?
Oh, okay. Okay, so the nature of your question is personal. Okay, then, let's call it acoustic versus AI. Is that what you mean, sort of?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say very, very acoustic, very, very little AI. is probably what I would say out of the gate. But that's something that we're going to learn. We're going to learn how you feel about AI and how you want AI. So this gets into a digital transformation, project. Part of it is understanding what your regard is for AI, what your sensibility is about it. I could certainly bring some education to the process. And I think that we just look at what your perceptions are for the utility and then decide what is the utility. I don't believe in using something, well, let me bring it to this. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. And that's really how I look at technology. I look at it from a utility perspective, not from a let's do it because we can perspective. And I'm not sure how AI, factors into what your website is going to be. But in terms of what the branding process is, I can say, and I don't want to shock you, but almost zero. Unless you want it, to be, I'll work with Grok. I've never developed a brand using AI, to be honest with you. And I like it that way, to be honest with you.
I think that's what I'm looking for. I mean, anybody could say, this is what the board said they think a small town is. ChatGPT brand the town for me, and it's going to spit something out. And I personally want to avoid that situation.
I do too. Well, and let me say something that's really objective from a technology standpoint about AI. AI, and I mean, this is a subject that we could go into more another time, but AI is still largely being trained. Okay, so it's still getting a lot of inputs. Grok is, ChatGPT is, DeepMind, others are all getting inputs. And I follow a very high level of expertise on a regular basis in terms of listening to podcasts, going to conferences, and so forth. And I keep an ear to the ground. And I utilize AI with a pretty high degree of openness, but also caution. And right now, it's very much in it's being built stage. So we want to take it for that.
All right.
So I'll preface my question on a concern I have at this price point. I feel like we should be generating an RFP. No disrespect intended.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're spending this much of the people's money, I feel like we should be sending out an RFP and allowing multiple vendors, contractors to bid on it. That being said, what is your comfort level if you do the branding, but another agency comes in and does the development, takes your assets from the branding exercise and applies the design to the site? If we outsource, let's say in every other aspect outside of the branding, like if your bid comes back, would you be okay with us saying, we'll use you for phase 1 for the branding, but we're using Keith.com for the development, and we're using Jerry.com for marketing? And if we had to parse it out, what's your comfort level working with other vendors to a common goal?
Well, I'd be you can choose whoever you want to have do the site. Here's sort of how I see the utility in working with me. But I would, just look at it as a, competitive process, and I'd be I'd be welcoming of anybody who would follow the branding exercise and do the website. I think, though, that I think it's more layered than it is linear, and so I think there are probably some design efficiencies and probably cost efficiencies at the end of the day for approaching it as a layered process. But if you wanted to have someone build the website separate of the brand development, that's fine with me. I don't know how I would overlap and work with. I think that what I would do is develop an identity, and then, that's your identity, and you can use it, as you want. What I wanted to say about the totals that you see, they're estimates, and there are a lot of elements that are baked into the total costs for the web design. I think there are elements baked in there that Jim had mentioned, but then there are some others. In the web design, so basically the total for the web design is carvable, meaning it's modular. There are elements that you can take out. one of the elements that you can take out is it does include a marketing plan, so it's not just a website. It's what you're going to do with that digital asset at the end of the day and what you're going to do with your new brand at the end of the day. And so in that amount is an estimate for building a plan for going forward and actually using it and promoting the town. And if you don't want to do that, then we can scale that down. There are services for addressing diversity markets and special markets. So there are totals that are in there for trying to address perhaps Spanish language or Spanish content in such a way. Sometimes we write a website or any marketing material in English, but for an Hispanic audience. So that whole issue is addressed in terms of diversity. The hosting fees are in there as well. Back on the branding side, one of the reasons for the branding estimate, when you develop a brand, you also have to check on the trademarks legally. And so that diligence is included as well. So I think there's just a little bit more that's baked in that I'd be happy to pull apart and talk to you about, and that you could exclude if you wanted to. So it's definitely a carvable total if you wanted to take out some of the elements that have been included.
Okay.
Like hosting and like, I think in the total, I've also estimated some services for being able to ask questions after the build is over. And that means that as the town keeps the website and but updates the website, you can be charged an a la carte fee for picking up the phone, and I'm going to pick on Civic Plus, but calling Civic Plus and asking them a question. And I don't mean to pick on Civic Plus because I don't know if this is their cost, but some folks will charge a pretty heavy consulting fee for just asking a question. So in my total, I've tried to include some of that too. So hosting, asking questions, diversity markets, legal trademarks on the branding side. So I think you'd find that there's quite a lot in there. But I'm happy to be competitive with anybody else.
Yeah, and that's the goal, is again, we're spending a good deal of people's money and being able to get the best of breed for branding, but also for development and also for hosting and perhaps language translation service. The benefit of creating an RFP is that we get timelines, we get deliverables, we get SLA. Sorry, that's a lot of acronyms. We get a lot of detailed responses from a lot of vendors, so we can really compare them with one another. And it may be that we end up using 2, 3, 4 or more vendors for the project as a whole, but I feel that gets us the best product for our intention. And not only, to your earlier point, not only in terms of the creation process, but supporting it after the fact as we build new tools on top of it, new integrations for events and sports and third-party systems, social media, on and on and on, as those new tools are becoming demands. If we work with multiple vendors, we have multiple options to address them when they come up.
And I guess my response to that is this was not about all those other options in terms of all those pieces. This was about engaging somebody that would help shepherd us through this process. And this does not include, the estimate that is here does not include who we're going to use for hosting a website. It doesn't include who we might use to build that website, whether it be Civic Plus or Aptigee or whatever firm was out there. The total cost was just an estimate of what this project is going to be. It's not a check we're writing to Ms. Pontius in terms of the entire project. That was just the estimate of what this is going to cost.
Right, and I'm sorry that I didn't make that clear, but so what the estimate was having me as project manager to actually collect many different bids and then bring all those together. I think I heard you in the previous section talking about the way to review things. What I would do is I would evaluate different resources, make a recommendation, and then ultimately you all would decide who the vendors would be at the end of the day. So this would put me as sort of your point person for finding a lot of those capabilities, but exactly, this wouldn't be for my company.
None of this is baked at this point. This is bringing somebody on board that's going to help shepherd us through the process so that at the end of the day, we have a brand and a website that meets the needs of the community. I don't know what that looks like yet, but this is part of the process, and this brings somebody on that speaks the language to brand and ultimately go through the website process.
And I think that's the asset that I bring from being in all the advertising agencies that I've been in, is helping choose the right vendor at the end of the day and making a recommendation for the best website resource. There are many of them out there, and so I'd love to dig into all of those after we do the branding. And I think that by the end of the time, or by the end of doing the branding, I'd have a good handle on, who you are and who you're becoming, to guide sort of pouring that into who you choose to build the website. And then what I would do is project manage the site development as well, if that makes any more sense.
So then the costs indicated in the notes are for project management, not for deliverables in terms of the site
No,
itself.
that's what the project was estimated to cost to get us to the point where we would have a new website. And so baked into that is website design, website hosting, getting it to that point. It's not just, it's the actual code being written at some point by somebody.
And that 80 to 100K does include that or does not?
That was my understanding.
Does.
Okay.
Does. Should. Yeah. And it could be less. Like I said, it's carvable. And if you said we're not interested, or we're not, I hate to pick an attribute, but okay, the self-service or the ability to call and ask for help and not just do everything ourselves on the website isn't important to us, and then we could, unfurl that from the cost. Or if the special markets weren't important to you, then we could unfurl that from the cost. But all in, that estimate is reasonably what I think it would take to, certainly build the brand and then build the website and have some hosting and so forth at the end of the day.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification and good question. Yeah.
I'm glad that we hit on that. Yeah, that was important. And you had a follow-up question?
No, mine was AI that he had me jump in
Okay.
I'm
before
good.
with.
I'm good.
You're good?
I know we ran a little bit over, so I apologize.
Okay.
I'm good.
So thank you for your questions.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks.
for your time.
All right, so this is an action item, so I guess someone wants to make a motion to,
So we want to accept the brand and website design as presented.
Or website assistance.
Assistance? Is that what we're?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to accept the branding and website design assistance as presented.
I'll second.
motion by trustee Seifert to approve the branding and website design assistance as presented. That was seconded by trustee Engelhardt. All's in favor? Aye. All's opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you very much. Oh, disappeared to the corner now. Thank you. Okay. Next up is the modification of premise for Rislinda, F&B LLC, doing business as Rislinda Events. And I will turn this over to Deputy Malsbury.
Good evening, everyone. Rislinda Events has applied for an application for a modification of the premises. As you know, they have an outdoor liquor license, seasonal, over on County Road 311. The state requires that any physical change or altercation under an applicant that has a liquor license, it must be prior approved before it's done. They had removed a Connex container outlet that they were using for storage and added a storage shed last year. But this year, they're running out of room, so they need another storage shed. So that is what this modification is covering. In the process, the staff, we've inspected the property as far as the shed goes. Everything is under code, it's fine. The applicant is current on the sales tax for 2024. They haven't opened as of 2025 yet. However, they do owe the town right now an AR balance with the amount of $1798.33 being in arrears concerning through the planning department.
And I'm going to state that that will be handled as part of the planning application and is not a reason to influence your decision as to this liquor licensing application.
Okay. That was my question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with the modification at all, but out of curiosity, how much of the overdue is over days?
The 17,098.33.
17.
The actual
I just didn't know
total,
if it's 30 days or like 3 years.
it's
That's-
30 days. The actual total to date is 22,237.61.
Okay, thank you.
But taking their liquor license isn't gonna help them pay us.
We actually cannot do that, but I will let
I mean-
Attorney Sawyer explain that.
Joke,
Yeah.
I'm not considering that in my decision-making.
No, yeah.
What is the age of that amount?
I don't have the exact printout on that, just the
Best
17
guess.
is past. Nicole, you might be able to help a little bit
I mean,
more with
are we
that.
talking 45 days, or are we talking
we're talk-
350 days?
Yes.
No, we're talking more like 6 months, I think, yeah.
Just 6 to 9 months, so
Yeah.
6 to 9 months.
And today we are just, we would be approving the modification of premise only.
That is correct. I'm just bringing you that information as we normally do when we address these
Issues,
applications.
business, it sounds like they are addressing it, according to Attorney Sawyer, told the unpaid balance, the AR balance. And if Trustee Clausen also mentioning not having issues with the
With the
addition-
modification of the liquor license, I don't have a
modification.
problem with that. It's the money they owe us. Yeah, that's
yeah.
kind of a problem.
So today we'd just be approving the modification of premise.
Correct, just adding the shed, the extra shed.
So I guess my concern is, at what point, I mean, next year they want 3 sheds, then they want 4 sheds, then it, becomes this whole big thing where any other property in town, you're allowed to have 1 shed. So I'm more of the opinion if they have a shed that's too small, then they should get a bigger shed. Remove a little one, put a big one on.
These 2 sheds
they
did
temporary?
replace a shipping container. And instead of the way that they purchased them, it was gonna be hard for them to make them one. The actual size of the storage between the 2 containers equals the size of the shipping container that was removed, but because of fire code and separation, they had to separate them out so they're 5 feet apart. So the actual size of the storage didn't change, but for the liquor license modification, the location of it changed, and they're considered 2 separate buildings now because of the fire separation.
And they did that in no small part because the town didn't like the Connex shipping container on the property.
Correct.
So this is an upgrade.
So is there any future plans on them building a permanent building?
Yeah, the land use application that they have that will be going in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission on May 6th is the final plat, revised PUD, SIA, or the SIA is not, but the PUD and the ARADA and the final plat will be coming in front of the Planning Commission. And so a lot of the concerns with accessory buildings and structures will be addressed in the PUD. So what they're doing right now is a temporary use.
So a
until
lot of
they
these
get-
could be put in there that they would go away when they got their permanent structure or something maybe?
Correct. Every tract that develops is gonna have to go through a site plan review, and they will have to dictate at that time exactly what storage or accessory structures that they're wanting to put in. And so the Planning and Zoning Commission would have full purview of
Okay.
dictating whether or not that seems appropriate for the use.
So these are just temporary storage space so they can continue to operate the outside features they've had the last year.
Correct, and that's the other thing that they're coming in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission for. as a separate land use application as another site plan review for the temporary events that are gonna take place until they actually start construction and get a final plat approval. And I believe I saw Mitchell jump on that he could probably give some clarification if he wanted to.
Would you like for me to unmute him?
You want to hear from Mitchell?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yes, if you'd like to unmute Mitchell,
yes.
please.
Hey, good evening, guys.
Good evening.
I caught, I think, the tail end of the conversation, so I'm not quite sure what you're looking for clarification.
My question was, I guess, is with these sheds, when you do build a permanent, is that something that's, you're gonna get rid of then, or you're gonna try and keep them, or, I mean, I'm just trying to clarify how long they're gonna stay there, if it's gonna be after the permanent or what?
No, we had the shipping container out there. It was an 8x20. So to replace the shipping container and to keep within the state footprint of where we were storing liquor, we needed an 8x20 footprint. And so I found 2 8x10 sheds. I was going to put them together, and that just became way too difficult. And so fire code, et cetera, they are now, 5 feet or 6 feet apart, Nicole, 2 sheds of quality that they will be useful, for another 10 years or so, but they'll be positioned somewhere else on the property, and they will be part of a site plan for whatever tract when that time comes. So everything that's down there for the folks that have been down there, the sheds, the grass, the flagstones, all of that is going to come up when it comes time to put in the proper event center.
Okay, that's my question.
Yeah.
This is Mayor Reichel. I guess if you could explain what you mean by one shed became difficult.
Trying to get those 2, because they were kits, Keith, they were like 8x10 kits from Lowe's. And in order to sort of make them into one shed, I was going to have to remove both back, put them back to back. I was going to have to remove both back walls and essentially ruin the sheds. And I really wanted instead to be able to use them for the current purpose, but then also not ruin them so that I could have them for future purposes.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can't just take 2 sheds and sort of butt them up together and call it one. They would have to have become joined in order to pass Nicole's muster. So there was no good way of doing that without ruining both sheds. So now the liquor, because the liquor was always stored in like the front half of the shipping container, and then like our chairs and tables and extra cups and all of those dry things were stored in the back of the shipping container. It was easy enough to know that an 8x10 shed, which is half of the shipping container, would fit the liquor. So the liquor is in the same footprint as almost literally as it was last year, as for the state board and the liquor license. And then that second shed, the one you see, I guess the northern shed, is where we have chairs and tables and rakes and hose and all those things.
Okay, I guess, and since you jumped on a little late, I guess I'll just explain.
Yeah.
I have a concern with allowing 2 sheds. While it seems minor, any other piece of property would be deemed to only allow 1 shed. So whether that means that
Right.
you had to custom construct a shed or something to fit your requirements, I mean, the fact that you wanted to do 2 sheds because it's easier or less difficult, To be blunt, I don't see that as the town's problem.
I don't think it was ever positioned as the town's problem. I think Nicole was nice enough to allow me to separate the two sheds.
And what are they gonna be used for?
So the southernmost shed is where the liquor is going to be stored. So think of it as the south half of the Connex. And then the northern half, think of it as the north half of the Connex. That's where the tables and chairs and rakes and hose and things like that are stored. And Mayor, I have no reason for a third shed, if that's where you're wondering, like the 8x20 shipping container was always more than enough storage. This is going to be more than enough storage for doing what little things that we're doing down there.
I guess my only concern with.
I do understand the whole concept of an accessory building and yada yada, but I think Nicole has been generous in allowing us a little bit of flexibility here, knowing what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and then the temporary nature of it.
My only concern would be is, I know storage sheds, I don't know how secure that is and when nobody's around there. It don't take much to break in, and that liquor there's nobody around. You know what I'm saying? Storage sheds aren't very secure. It wouldn't take much to pop that padlock and you got liquor kids out there. It's wide open. There's no secure area. I'm just saying.
Fair point. It's the same lock we had on the shipping container. So, it's just like your car's not secure if somebody wants to get inside of it badly enough.
Still can, it's a little easier to hard.
Right. And then this year we're adding an extra layer of security by way of cameras and things.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have a little bit more out there than we did last year.
Oh, okay.
Just really for that reason, because I agree with you, right? Like it's a 3/8 of an inch of piece of wood between you and whatever. So.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions, comments from the applicant? Okay. All right. This is a public hearing, so the time is 7:43 p.m. and I'll open up the public hearing in regards to the modification of premise for Rislinda F&B LLC doing business as Rislinda Events. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, did you have any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay.
I do not show any raised hands.
Okay. Would anybody in the public like to speak to this agenda item? All right. Seeing none, the time is 7:43 p.m. and I will close the public hearing. Open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we allow the modification of premises for Rislinda F&B LLC to have the second storage shed.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem to approve the modification of premise for Rislinda F&B LLC, doing business as Rislinda Events for the second storage shed. Seconded by Trustee Clausen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is the River Run discussion of notice of violation letter, updates to the board regarding resolution of issues. So before we get started, I was just going to say this is technically not a public hearing. I believe we have a lot of the public here, though, that is interested in this event. So after we get our presentation from staff and our town attorney, if the board would like to, we can open it up and listen to public comments. So once we get that presentation, we can decide if that's what we would like to do or not.
And what I wanted to briefly address is kind of process for the meeting tonight. So I think staff's recommendation is Nicole and I have some initial staff comments. We'd like to make the opportunity for the landowner to provide comments if they so choose. We do believe that it's appropriate to take public comment, just as this is a discussion item, so we'll open this up for public comment. And then we can have a discussion, if there's additional questions you have for staff. And the outcome of this agenda item is not necessarily a decision. You may choose to task directing your staff in certain ways in terms of what we're doing. But there's no formal decision that's on the agenda for the conclusion of this agenda item. I would offer there's applicant, counsel, and representatives of the applicant. If they want to sit at the table, I would note that this is our place for public comment as well, and so people will be kind of coming and going. But if you, at such time as you'd like to sit at the table, please feel free to do so.
I appreciate that. I figured that's probably where public comment was going to occur, so we will sit tight here for the time being. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Will, quick question
Yes.
about the format. Public comments, will they be structured the same as they are at the beginning of the meeting in terms of time limits? And in terms of the board not ask trustees or the mayor asking questions directly in response to those comments?
I believe we should just follow the same rules as standard
Exactly.
public
I
comment.
just
Yes.
want to be clear so everybody in the room knows
Yeah.
what's going to be transpiring.
That's right. So yeah, yep. I think that's what we should do, just to keep the flow.
Then I think we should do it.
Okay. Let's hear our presentation, and then we'll decide as a board. All right. Turn this over to Director Centeno.
Alrighty, I will go through this as quickly as I can with my cheat sheets here. It was brought to light in late 2023 after we had some applications come in for fences and carports, and some discussions with the property management company over at Camp Colorado River Run, and then some discussions with the property owner, that it was discovered that not all of the proper approvals were gotten for the development as a whole. There was a turnover of staff at Town Hall that also aided in this development being permitted and approved for building permit without a site plan approval through the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so, since we all ended up on the same page that there was never actually a site plan approval, we came together with the Camp Colorado River Run owners in January of 2024 after we sent a letter of default, a violation letter to them, kind of lining out what we thought the problems were, things that we thought could have or would have been addressed during a site plan review, and trying to come together and figure out how do we, where do we go from here? How do we work together to remedy some of these violations? We've been working together, like I said, for over a year, and we've made a lot of progress. There's a couple things that might need to come back in front of the board for final decisions. But as we were going through the process and trying to figure out where we can meet in the middle and where do we go from here, I feel as if the River Run community themselves have not had a platform or a voice to speak. They've had a lot of concerns, and everything has been very much so, our conversations and communications between the town and the River Run Camp Colorado owners have been behind closed doors. And for the sake of transparency, we wanted to make sure that since we've remedied a lot of the violations and we're at a good point of moving forward, that we want to make sure we communicate that openly with the River Run community as well as our board, and that we give everybody a platform to speak. So there are some things that you'll hear tonight from the homeowners of the River Run community that are not within the purview of the town. Those are more civil matters that are between them and the property owner. And then there's some things that you'll hear that are the purview of the town that we can make some progress on. I was going to highlight, everybody has, I don't know if everybody in the room had a chance to read through the memo that was attached to the packet. but I will highlight some of the violations really quick and just make sure that I give a quick update. So one of the first violation listed on the letter is fences and gated entrance. Those were things that would have been addressed at the time of a site plan application, and those are things that will need to be addressed at a site plan application for, because fences and gates, and especially like a gated community where it's a locked gate, that's all something that would have to come in for a fence exemption anyways. So that's something that they're gonna need to give a separate application for. And then sheds and outdoor storage. There were several sheds installed without permits, and given the density and the fire code separation, just like what you heard in the on the previous agenda item, they have to be 5 feet all the way around to meet that fire code separation. And so with the density and the requirement for the separation, per the PUD, outdoor storage was not allowed in this location. And so that's still something that we're working through with the property owners. The landscaping has been resolved for the most part. There was some flooding within their common green space. They're working on that. We still have to complete an inspection. And so as long as that inspection goes okay, that should be resolved. The number of vehicles allowed per unit. We've been struggling with people parking on the streets, and the streets are so narrow that it barely leaves enough room for emergency services to respond. It makes it impossible for them to respond if there's somebody parked on the road. And so that's a life, health and safety issue. And so the property owners did revise their rules and regulations to include that there's absolutely 0 street parking. One thing that we did throw out that has not been resolved is putting like overflow parking or additional parking, because that'll be something that we discuss further at the time of site plan review for the storage units, because that additional overflow parking would have to impede into that area that they're wanting to develop for storage.
Can I have a point of clarification real quick? When you refer to property owners, you're talking about the
Yep.
owners of River Run, not the
Not the
property owners
homeowners.
of the units. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
So
Just one.
that's what I'll say is the property owner for the Camp Colorado River Run Investment Group, and
Okay.
then the homeowner
Homeowners
for the individual.
for the units.
homeowners.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Number 5, we had the open fire pits. There's not, per the town code, we're not allowed to have open burning pit, fire permit, or fire pits. Instead of, there's 70 over there. So it's a big number, and that's definitely something that we would have had more discussion about at the time of site plan review. But they are there, and we believe, and we might find out more tonight, but we believe that that is actually an asset that the community would like to keep. And so we've talked to the property owners about making them safe, installing spark arresters and covers to make sure that it mitigates some of that fire hazard with the density and how many are over there. And then number 6 with the road widths, this one's still an ongoing conversation. We need to do another inspection. The road widths did not meet the minimum requirements for emergency services to get through or a fire truck to get through. And so they've been working to resolve some of that. So we'll look at that when we go to do the inspection, when our town engineer goes to do his inspection. And then enclosed porches, this was kind of a one-off. Number 18 ended up going in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission. They had enclosed the porch to create additional square footage. That was a one-off approval. Everybody knows that that's not allowed anymore. Nobody else can enclose a porch over there because it takes away from what would have been originally approved. Carports, during that turnover of staff, there was some confusion, and there was 2 carport permits issued and CO'd. Those are gonna have to be allowed to stay the way that they are, but no additional carports. Designated snow storage, that's an ongoing issue also. We're still going through the drainage plan to make sure that the location and the quantity of space provided for snow storage is going to be adequate for the area. And it's the same thing with drainage issues. The detention pond over there actually has a lot of water in it very consistently. And so we want to make sure that that's adequate for the drainage that is needed, especially if there is like a 100-year flood event. Water system improvements are ongoing. The debris and repair damaged infrastructure we've been told that it is resolved. We'll look at that at the inspection. The dumpster, identifying the dumpster location. They have identified the dumpster location. As soon as we have the drainage study and the drainage submittal reviewed, we will determine if that impervious surface allows for that dumpster to be where it's located. And then they will put in an application to enclose it so that it's aesthetically pleasing as well. The cluster mailboxes, I know that the property owners or maybe the property manager has really tried hard with the postal service. I do believe that at this point they are making progress to have a cluster mailbox over there so that they can so their mail services can get provided to a location close to their house, that they're not all required to get a P.O. box. So that one's still ongoing, but I do believe that they've made some progress. Short-term, long-term occupancy, that has been resolved. There's no short-term rentals allowed within the River Run community. There are some long-term rentals, but there are no short-term rentals as per the rules and regulations. The parkland dedication, we did get the property owners the parkland dedication fees for the residential component of River Run, and that is still a conversation that we're mitigating out with the property owner to figure out if there's a dedication or a fee that's going to be paid, an in lieu of fee. The dog park, they had originally said that it was going to be where the detention pond is. Like I said, the detention pond is doing its job and it's holding water and it's catching the water, but it's not suitable for a dog park. So they did revise their rules and regulations to allow the River Run community to use the KOA dog park. There's additional amenities that were discussed during the, or within the PUD that we need to still work with the property owners to figure out what requirements there will be, and that's probably one that's going to come back to the board for more direction. Same thing with the river trail. The response, there's a couple more that were resolved. I know that a concern of the River Run community was the mosquitoes because of the detention pond, and the property owners have discussed doing a mitigation plan or adopting the county's mitigation plan and helping spray and make sure that the mosquitoes are not overwhelming this summer again. They got their backflow done. The lift station, we're still working with them on, and the water line dedication. There's some state statutes that they have to abide by and we have to abide by, so we're trying to figure out what needs to be dedicated to the town up to the hydrant, and at this point I think a lot of those conversations are on level ground. It's just actually going through the process of doing it. Every house needs to have a unit number on it that's a contrasting color. Not every house, like it's like a dark brown and then there's like a black number. That's something that they're working on also to get resolved so the emergency services don't have any issue or delay in responding to a specific unit. As-built, we're still waiting for the property owners to provide us as-built, and then we can get a little bit more of the process going for some of the other issues. But at the end of the day, we've been making progress, working together. We've had lots of meetings, a lot of back and forth with where we can meet in the middle, where there's give, where there's take, and just wanted to give an update on where we are.
Thank you, Nicole.
I would just add a couple of things to Nicole's very good staff report. So, as Nicole mentioned, this should have gone through site plan review. It didn't. There are some reasons for that, some on the town side, some on the owner's side. But it's kind of neither here nor there. We're past that stage. The improvements have been constructed. As part of the town's review before construction began, the owner submitted engineering plans for road, streets, water, drainage to the town, and also had submitted a landscape plan. We deem those to be the governing documents as to the standards to which things should be constructed on site. And you heard Nicole mention a number of times that we have done and will continue to do inspections at appropriate times, and that is to ensure that what has been built is built in conformance with the plans that had been reviewed and commented on by the town's engineer. In the memo, those are referred to as the October plans because that's when the town engineer said these look good. There are, however, some deviations from those plans that occurred. And as Nicole mentioned, they include some additional hard surface, which includes the fire pits. We are requesting an update to the drainage plan to make sure that the drainage does function with what actually got built on the property. We also, as Nicole mentioned, are requiring that things that have been built or that they want to build that are not shown on the October plans have to then go through the appropriate review and approval processes. And so there are things that are both in place and that the owner would like to have done, such as the gated entrance, that are going to have to come back through a site plan review process and a permitting process with the town. This is not quite the way that the town would have envisioned this project being completed. Reverse engineering things is always a little bit hard, but we do appreciate the willingness of the applicants to meet with us on several occasions to try and talk through and work through the issues. And we have, as Nicole mentioned, and as you can read in the memo, we have actually been able to reach agreement and resolution on a number of the items that we initially identified as being inconsistent with either the code or with the plans that had been approved. So welcome questions from you for your staff. After which, if the applicant would like to provide any comments, they're welcome to do so. Also, they may choose to wait until after the public has had an opportunity to comment to provide or the owner's comments. But we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Oh, I guess I'm just gonna ask a quick one. These fire pits, is that something that Orrin will have to have any say in that, or?
We did include Orrin in the conversations and in a meeting when we discussed it.
Okay.
Yeah, looks like they would need to address the sheds, parking, and before even looking into potentially approving those fire pits, because would be more of a hazard, potentially.
Yeah, a lot of the things that need resolution or approval or
Will come back.
Yeah, they do parallel with each other, that they go hand in hand, that we do need certain things to happen before other things can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the big two for me are the road widths and the numbers, the contrasting numbers on the units. To your point, that's health and safety issue. We can be upset about a lot of things based on where we are, but ensuring everybody's safety has got to be priority number one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, anything else needs to be dependent on those types of issues, for me.
Can the town do an inspection, like a scheduled inspection, at a certain given point of projects? If we have some of those bigger projects going, to be more, like, in the future, to be more consistent, and if there's transition, then some kind of a system going forward.
So normally, and Joe and Nicole they're the ones who actually do this, but when a system runs through the process the normal way, there is then a development agreement that spells out inspections and process for reviewing improvements as they're made, and those things then get scheduled with Derek, our town engineer. Again, this portion of the Camp Colorado project did not roll out in accordance with our normal procedures. So that's why we are trying to reverse review, approve what's out there.
And this only pertains, just for the people at home, this only pertains to the tiny home portion, not the KOA part, correct?
We have addressed some additional issues about the KOA with the owners that we are also working through, and at a separate meeting, we could provide an update on those items. We thought because of the interest of the homeowners specific to the River Run community, we would limit this meeting to those issues.
Okay, that's fine, yes. Thank you.
Okay. I have nothing. Thank you, Nicole, for the report.
Very thorough, yes.
You guys are working on it, and I'm sure we'll get another update later.
I guess, are we still asking questions?
Go for it, yeah.
I had one for Director Lundin. So the water system, so the portion that's going to become theirs, it's not the whole thing, right? Or is it? I just didn't know what portion is going to be considered theirs or what portion is going to be considered the town's.
On the water system?
Yes.
That's in discussion. I mean, I believe it'll all become the town's just because of the fire hydrants that are on there.
Uh-huh.
And the easements that is needed to maintain the fire hydrants. But we are in discussion with the property owners on.
Okay.
Were the amenities in the final plan, or was that a representation within the discussions only?
The latter. So there were representations at the public hearing at which the PUD was approved about types of amenities that would be built. And there were certain things mentioned that have not come to fruition, and I guess I would suggest that's probably best for the applicant to discuss with the board.
Thank you, Attorney Sawyer.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have a question for whenever the applicant gets up there.
Okay. I guess if the applicant would like to speak to it, they don't have to address anything at this meeting. It's not a...
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Mary Elizabeth Geiger from Garfield and Hecht on behalf of the owners. Matthew Budd is also in my office.
Mary Elizabeth, can you get the microphone?
Sorry.
Thank you.
I'll start over. Mary Elizabeth Geiger from Garfield and Hecht. Matthew Budd is here also from my office, and we represent the landowners. I really appreciate Mike's memo and Nicole's presentation. The owners are working actively with the town to try to resolve everything, and that is our goal. And we are glad to have this opportunity tonight to hear some of your questions and concerns, and to also hear from the homeowners. So, thank you.
Okay. I guess, Chris, if you have a question you'd like to ask them and see if they would like to answer or
Yeah,
not.
sure. The only one question that kind of bothers me is in the beginning of Nicole's report, there is mention of platform to speak and not having a platform to speak. Could you explain how you feel you didn't have a platform to speak? because we've had plenty of meetings and more than enough opportunities to talk to the town administrator or the planning department. I'm just trying to clarify what is meant by no platform to speak.
I believe that's with regard to the homeowners and not the
Okay,
property
so I
owners.
guess I'm
Yes.
mistaken, and I
Yeah, no,
apologize
sorry.
for
We've had
that.
plenty of opportunity to talk with the town
Okay.
staff, so
Okay,
thank
so
you.
yeah, that was the one thing that, okay. All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anything else by the landowner?
Yeah, just the same question. Is this yeah, okay. The same question I directed to Attorney Sawyer in regards to being represented that certain amenities would be built and coming to a final point of stating that that was not on the final plan and the amenities did not get constructed. So, yeah, but I do want to know if that is something that was approved and reviewed by P&Z and did not get constructed, or where the representation of it was just not perceived potentially by the group.
Thank you for that question. I don't want to get into, and I'm not trying to be cagey, but for purposes of tonight's meeting, since these are ongoing discussions with staff, trying to reach a settlement of everything, I don't really want to talk too much about where we are with those things. The minutes of the P&Z meeting reflect a statement about amenities. We have some disagreements with town staff about what that meant and where it landed in the approvals, but that's a piece that we're working on, as Nicole indicated.
Thank you for your response.
Trustee Post, and I would add that I think hearing from the residents about amenities and what it is that, they believe is important to them is a big part of this equation. And the owner has mentioned to us that, of course, with amenities come some costs to maintain them, and that also fits into the equation. So, maybe this is an item we can bring up at the end of this discussion and revisit.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for the landowner?
Nope.
Okay. And are we all okay with the homeowners?
Yes.
Yes, please.
So just, we usually give each person 3 minutes to speak. I would ask in a lot of these situations, I'm sure that many of you have the same concerns. So if you're gonna say the same exact thing as somebody before you, I'm not gonna take away your right to come up and speak, feel free. But if we're gonna hear 15 times the same exact sentence, it's probably not the best use of everybody's time, but I will, if that's what everyone wants to do, say the same thing. You do get your 3 minutes. So I don't know how you guys would like to do this. If you have a representative, if you would all like to come up. When you do come up to the table, if you just state your name and address for the record, and then we'll give you your 3 minutes to speak.
I have written comments.
Okay. If you'd like to come on up. And
Because I was going to honor the 3 minutes, I'm certainly not saying all I have to say. I'm saying 3 minutes. And maybe a little 15 seconds over. I'm Diana Andrews, 329 River Frontage Road, number 39. When I began considering a purchase at the RRC, I had some requirements in order for me to feel safe and my possessions and investments protected. My non-negotiable checklist included a safe and secure neighborhood, a carport, screened-in patios, and a shed. I was interested in customizing during the build process. Being within town limits, I assumed cluster mailboxes would be provided. Additionally, there would be a dog park and a storage facility. The expectation for landscaping was set by verbal descriptions and the artist rendering on the website. Prior to the sale, I was emailed that the community would be gated. After taking possession, we were told that there would also be a keyed privacy entry between the community and the KOA. Prior to the sale, I was told I would be able to have a carport, and I could see a couple of units had them. Prior to the sale, I was told that I would be able to have my patio screened in, which would provide several benefits. Prior to the sale, I was told I could have a shed, and there were properties with very nice sheds. Prior to the sale, I was told that there would be things I could customize during the build. Never was it mentioned that we would be expected to get permanent P.O. boxes instead of having cluster mailboxes. Throughout the sales process, and as indicated by visiting the website, There was a clear expectation for how the grounds would be landscaped and maintained. I felt like my non-negotiable list had been met with some bonuses. I signed a deal. I have now owned in the RRC for 2 years. As of this date, there is neither a gate at the north entrance nor the promised keyed barrier at the KOA threshold. RRC blames the town for this and has backtracked on providing a gated entrance. After the contract was signed and the build had begun, I was told these weren't built for sheds, that there would no longer be any customizations allowed, that carports and screen patios weren't going to be allowed. There was a vague indication that the town was to blame for these changes. After taking possession, I was told there would be 2 inches of topsoil laid before grass seed in the common area. For 2 years, we were told that the mulch would be replenished. Neither have occurred. Instead of hearing our complaints and investigating, we were told to lower our expectations and not expect it to be lush. After taking possession, we were told that we would have to have P.O. boxes. The postmaster was to blame, and they refused to discuss it further. I've talked to the postmaster, who claimed that the developers wouldn't pay to break ground and lay concrete for their installation. According to the developers, they had a faulty engineering study, therefore we have a dog pond, not a dog park. Again and again, you can see a pattern of bait-and-switch sales tactics, blaming others, and taking no accountability. I would like to make the following demands on the developers. All land rent be put into an escrow account until all non-compliance and other matters are resolved. All land rent increases be frozen for another 3-year term of contract. Cluster mailboxes be installed and a written apology sent to the postmaster. Mulch be replenished everywhere, and topsoil and grass seed be applied to the center common area. I would like the town to reconsider limitations on residents having sheds, carports, and screen patios. I would like the town to closely monitor the watering schedule of the irrigation to reduce daily watering and watering outside of expected timeframes. Sprinklers were running yesterday at noon. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any way we can make the timer a little bigger?
And maybe if we could just get a copy of that letter, just.
That app doesn't seem to be functioning the way it used
Very
to.
well.
Okay.
So, sorry.
All right. Okay, thank you.
And re-edited for 3 minutes. Very good. Not easy. I had a lot more to say.
Nicole, are you able to read the letter that? Sheila has it. She will read it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got that. I can, would you,
Yeah, I
would
mean,
you guys
we
like
all-
me to go ahead and
we
read
all-
this into the record?
We all have a copy.
We all have a copy, so. This was addressed to the Silt Town Trustees. Subject, request for parcel ground lot lease, water, sewer, and trash fees to be held in escrow until completion of the River Run community. Dear Silt Town Trustees and River Run developers, we are writing on behalf of concerned homeowners within the River Run community, 329 River Frontage Road, Silt, regarding the numerous unfinished infrastructure and amenity projects that have yet to be completed. Despite ongoing payments for parcel ground lot leases, water, sewer, and trash fees, significant portions of the promised development remained incomplete, leaving residents without the full benefits and livability that were originally guaranteed. Landscaping across the entire community is dead. The green spaces, either dead, overwatered, or flooded. There is no gate to this advertised gated community. There is a dangerous pond where the dog park was advertised and is yet to be completed. There are unsightly dumpsters with no barriers. We respectfully request that all parcels, ground lot lease, water, sewer, and trash fees be placed into escrow account until the necessary infrastructure, amenities, and community improvements are complete as per the original agreements and exceptions set forth when properties were purchased. Holding these funds in escrow will provide an additional layer of accountability to ensure that the developers follow through on their commitments to the residents of River Run. This request is made in the best interest of the community and aims to protect homeowners from continued financial obligations without receiving the expected and necessary services. We would appreciate the opportunity to discuss this matter further with town officials and the River Run developers and explore potential solutions to ensure a fair resolution for all parties involved. Thank you for your time and consideration. We look forward to your response and are hopeful for a positive resolution. Sincerely. And we got 14, 21 signatures on this letter. So that will be placed in the record for the board minutes. Would any other members of the public like to speak? Go ahead.
Take me a second.
That's okay.
Take your time.
There is oh, there we go. She's found a bigger timer.
Holy cow, yeah.
Yeah.
That works.
Hello, I'm Dana Wood. I live at 329 River Frontage Road, number 64. I appreciate everyone's time and working on this matter. I know that it's not easy. This is really messy. This is 70 homeowners' lives, essentially, and we pay a lot of money every month in lot fees, water, sewer, and trash. Probably around $60,000 a month is what the developers are getting with all of those fees. We continue to have dead landscaping. Nicole, I know you said that that was resolved. It's not. There's probably 2 living trees out my window, and the rest are continuously dead. Nothing gets replaced. The retention pond is a hazard. There are kids that go and play in that pond. It's a mosquito attractant. It's dangerous. It's gross. Our community is 2/3 done, and it's an eyesore. It's an embarrassment to live there. All we want is what we were promised when we bought our units, and we are not asking for more. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll say something.
All right, come on.
Oh, okay. Thomas Swanson, River Frontage Road, Unit 48. I just want to say that the mitigation pond is not acceptable, especially in a 100-year flood situation. You know, there's a sump pump that pumps out that water. So what happens if the electricity goes out? That's just going to flood the entire KOA. So they can easily drill a drainage pond. I don't even know where that sump pump goes, but is that into the, I'm not too sure, into the sewage system, or is that into the river? I'm not too sure, but there's no reason why that has to be there. You know, that was a miscalculation to begin with. Filling a whole pond full of water with a sump pump, you know, that someone has to drain out every day. Who drains that? So it's, you know, you have to have someone to drain that sump pump, someone to be there, you know, electricity to do that. It's not flowing readily, so
Okay.
I don't see the point. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else out in the hallway that, or did they all step out? Okay.
Hey y'all.
Hi.
My name is Dorothy. I live at the same place they live, just Unit 62. This was my first house that I ever built, or that I ever bought as an adult. It was very unfortunate to see that none of those amenities were even close to being built. We all have dogs there. We're all huge dog lovers. I agree with my neighbors that having that pond there is gross for many reasons, doesn't really serve its purpose. I don't think we want poisonous stuff sprayed everywhere to mitigate mosquitoes. And it's not really the best, you know. We would really enjoy that trail that we were all promised. Yeah, I just want to put my input, and that's really all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, you're regulating this meeting, but it turns out amenities is one of the things that we've been having a lot of discussion and not reached a lot of resolution on. So if the public has thoughts about that, it certainly would benefit staff.
Staff. Okay. I guess on the amenities side, just for what is included on the October 28th plans, or the date of there was another date in there.
October 28th.
Yeah, there's.
Okay, so October 28th was the date. So what?
I don't think any amenities are shown on that plan.
On that plan. But there was a discussion on December 4th, 2018 at the P&Z.
There were discussions as part of the zoning approval to amend the PUD to allow for this portion of the development.
Mm-hmm. In most things that we pass, anything a developer states in a meeting becomes
Material representations of the applicant are deemed to be binding. But again, the developer made some statements about amenities that may not correspond with what the owners want to have, I mean, which kind of gets at the, we have all these owners here. If any are interested in talking about amenities, it would be very helpful for us, so.
Do we have a homeowner that can give us the list of amenities that everyone feels like they're missing?
Or I was gonna say, would it be helpful for them to email to the town, to Nicole or someone, or just drop off, either email or drop off, so that way there's a list of what their expectations are, so that way staff knows what to look for and what things are most important.
That's an acceptable.
And that might be cleaner than everybody coming up and talking now and having it be a little more quantifiable.
I do think it's important, though, that people are able to voice.
Can you go up to the, sorry, with your leg.
I do think it's important that if other people want to speak, that they have the opportunity to
definitely.
speak, even if it's redundant.
Yep. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, anybody that would like to come up, yes.
And anyone who wants to speak now should speak, and then I'm a person who I like to think about what I'm gonna say. You can tell because sometimes I say really silly, dumb things when I'm up here. But so you can email the town, and we could have I don't know if we could have a subcommittee meeting or something about amenities, could we? I don't know if that's an option.
Staff is actively involved in
Right.
in working on this, and whatever happens, and this is important for everybody here to know, whatever proposed sets of resolutions we might come up with staff are going to come back to this board for review, consideration of public comment, and potential approval. So nothing gets finally resolved without additional process that the homeowners can participate in.
Yeah, and I want you all to know that, if as many avenues for communication, I want you to know about all of them, and then you still always have the opportunity to come back and talk to us, even if it's not an agenda item. So, with that.
You have our attention.
Yes.
We work
Thank
for
you.
you.
Yes.
And for the town.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
wanna
I
hear it.
appreciate that. And I appreciate you letting us all speak. I know that this has been said, but I'm Chris McLeod, and I live in number 49. I retired, moved up here, like many people behind me and many people in the community. And we moved here because this was going to be a beautiful development and community. When I look outside my windows, I see irrigation hoses. There's no mulch. They did have that down when we moved in, but now all you see are irrigation hoses. In my property, I had 3 trees. I now have 1 tree. The 2 trees have died and got hauled off. And I've been told for probably over a year and a half that those would be replaced, and they're not. And I'm only one person out of 70 of these homes, and every single person is dealing with the same thing. The grounds look horrible. And, I didn't move here, I didn't move to Silt to live in a dump. And there's a lot of things, going on in that development that we're not proud of. We want to be proud homeowners. We want to look out of our windows and see we live in a nice place and we want to take care of it. And so that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Sinopoli. I'm a homeowner at the River Run Community, Lot 53. I certainly want to echo what's been said here by every person that's come up. I think it's all very, very important. 2 things in particular that I would like to call attention to. One, Mayor Pro Tem, is it Hanrahan?
Just Derek is fine.
Derek.
I'm used to it. You're not
Mayor
the
Pro
first
Tem Derek, thank you,
today.
sir. Mentioned that the health and safety aspect is of utmost concern, and I do believe that is the truth. I believe that should be the primary focus, as well as holding up to the promises that have been made both in writing and verbally between the developers, the property owners, and us homeowners. But I think in regards to the health and safety, primarily the drainage issues is a major issue. Standing water is a major health health concern and a hazard to the drivers, to the pedestrians. I don't know if I have to go really into detail, but I think we all understand that standing water is a health hazard, not to mention just dangerous. And certainly in the wintertime, I remember one instance where we were sent an email. I don't have the email pulled up right now, but there is an instance where we were sent an email from the property management company that when water freezes in the winter, it turns to ice. And we were told this bluntly. When water freezes, it turns to ice. And then ice is slippery and it's dangerous to walk on. And one, it was very demeaning. And two, very obvious, doesn't need to be said. But to me, it was them passing the buck and saying, well, it's not our problem. It's your problem for walking on ice. And to me, that's just not acceptable. So the health and safety is primary. Two, and I'll try and get through this quick as I see the timer. We were promised, or we were told that sheds would be allowed before we purchased, as you've heard from many other people here. I do understand that the sheds have to do with the fire separation. Nicole has told us this in the past. But with that, we were told, and I've heard talk of a mini storage facility being constructed or being planned for our units. And I was wondering if there was any update, any information about the mini storage units that would be adjacent to or part of the property. So if we could address that, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Claire Griffin. I live at River Run number 54. A lot of the homeowners did not come in on the ground floor. I bought my home last summer, and even at that time, there was promises of amenities to come. So it's not like this was something that was promised at the very, very beginning and then fell through. That is something that that at least at the time was a continued promise. And it's disappointing to see that that if it was never intended to come to fruition, was continued to be used as a selling point 2 years later. Slightly unrelated, as far as health and safety goes, the only way to take the bus, if you live in River Run, is to walk across the highway. And there's no sidewalk, there's no pedestrian bridge, there's no any sort of infrastructure to make that anywhere even close to safe. And I was hoping that, particularly if there continues to be development on that side of the highway, that the town will take that into account, that eventually that's going to be an absolutely unacceptable safety risk.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a quick question. I don't know if it's for the landowner or the homeowners. Who does the HOA represent?
There is no HOA.
There is no HOA. There's not an HOA, Mike, I don't know if, there is not an HOA, it's not a subdivision, because the lots are leased, the structures are owned, but there isn't a homeowners association. So the leases, are paid to the landowner, but there are no HOA dues.
Okay, so when the gentleman referred to an HOA, that actually that would have been a letter from the landowner?
property manager.
About-
He was a property manager.
Okay.
So there is a property manager, who's hired by the owner.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
So a
So,
property
sorry.
manager, not an HOA?
Correct.
Okay.
That's right.
Not to denigrate, but you can think of this like a trailer park. The land is all owned.
Right.
The park is owned by one individual. They have a property manager. Then there are individuals who own homes within.
Okay, so not a technical HOA per se, okay.
I want to go back briefly to a comment. I think you made it, Dana. I want to make sure I get the number right. You said the monthly fees across all 70 units is how much? Did you say 16 or 60?
60,000 a month.
60.
So, me personally, I pay $650 for my lot fee.
I'm sorry, do you mind?
Yeah,
So
up
we
to
can
the-
get it on the record if you don't mind coming
Yeah,
back
if you
up.
can
I'm
come
sorry.
yeah.
Thank you.
Someone carry the mic over.
Aren't
to
you
her
glad I
desk.
called on you?
Okay.
I pay $650 a month in lot fees. So that's just me. Times that by 70 units, and some probably pay less, some probably pay a little bit more. I think I probably pay the top tier because I'm one of the in phase 3. Unless somebody's have gone up. $770 a month for a lot fee. That's a lot of money to live in a dumpy community.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
I heard the number right.
Yep.
I didn't
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
to make you walk up.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. All right. Would any other property managers or property homeowners?
We don't get to do anything.
Homeowners like to speak? Okay. Would the property owners like to discuss any of the items brought up? I don't know if this is the right forum where you guys want to address anything or not, but I just want to give you that opportunity.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to hear kind of all at once. That's super helpful because my understanding is, yes, people have individually maybe sent comments and concerns to the property manager. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here to hear that all at once. I do like the idea, thank you, of getting stuff in writing just so there is a running document that staff can refer to that we can utilize as we try to work through some of these issues. And, we are actively and want to continue working with the town to get everything in order. So, thank you.
For the homeowners, has there been any, since the dog park pond is not a good dog park, have you guys, it sounds like they've allowed you to use the KOA dog park. Has there been any issues accessing the KOA dog park?
No, just not stocked with dog poop bags until the KOA campers show up. Then
Okay.
they're fully stocked.
Okay.
So you see a difference in how renters from the KOA campground and we are treated.
Okay.
And trail maintenance, road maintenance in the winter, again, having an adequate area to walk so we can get to this dog park. Not only the dog park, but the river trail as well that we were promised. Adequate snow removal and ice mitigation to make it safe in the winter.
Okay. All right. Okay, before we move on, are there any final comments from either the landowner or the homeowners? Can you please come up to the microphone? I know it's tight and it's tough to get to, but just that way we have everything on record, please.
I guess what I was wondering is how do we as the homeowners stay in the loop with what's going on? Because it seems like when you ask the property owners what's going on, they give one story. There's been many residents who've gone out on their own trying to get answers to why things are not done. And we get different answers from the post office, different answers from the city, different answers from the property owners. There's no consistent thread of really what's going on. And I think that all of us are pretty patient and pretty understanding of the city's side of this and even the developers, which I had great hopes for and found them to be quite disappointing, because they just didn't follow through with the things that they say that they're going to do. And as Dana said, nobody in here is asking for anything that we weren't promised. Okay, so that's part of the rub, I guess. And when you said we don't have a platform, there is no HOA. We don't have anything. If we send something in, we get some sort of snarky response back from the property owner. It's not even an attempt to hear what we're saying and to remediate it. And that is where the disappointment comes in. I think I've been there over 2 years, same as everyone, waiting for the dead trees to be replaced, waiting for some sort of grass to be planted, waiting for the roads to be properly cared for. You know, they just came in a week ago, and dumped a bunch of gravel everywhere. Well, they didn't grade the road, so as soon as the first rain happened, which was, a couple days ago, today, it's just full of mud puddles. There's big barren spots where they didn't even out the gravel, so as you go into the community, it's all missing. You know, so it's substandard work even when it is done. And we don't have a say in terms of we pay money for this, and there's no quality control in terms of what's being done. The first time they plowed the roads, when we had snow, they took 2 or 3 inches of gravel with everything and made the roads mud. Okay, so I'm just saying, if you're gonna do something, do it right. That's all we're asking. Thank you.
Can we get your name and address?
Deborah Manning, Unit 38.
Thank you very much.
329 River Run. Yep.
That's a good question, maybe for staff or Attorney Sawyer. Is there a way for us to provide consistent communication as a status update, knowing, of course, attorney-client privilege exists. Some of these are private matters between stakeholders. It's an open question.
I think that the town has at least tried, as we've been working through this, to communicate, maybe not directly with all the owners, but when we would get a call to, field questions. And we certainly are at the point where we're getting down to what we think is a smaller number of issues. So our process, I think, as staff is to report back to you as the Board of Trustees, and if you would like, every so often for us to prepare something that we can discuss with you, and that then can be disseminated out to the owners, that's certainly something we can do. I will say that, there are, just listening to this, there are issues that I hear from the owners that fall within the purview of what the town approved and can enforce, and we're working on those. There are other sets of issues as to promises that were made to induce sales. Those are not things the town can enforce. Now, the owners may have their own set of rights that they could work on, but we have the issues that we can enforce with respect to the town code, the engineering plans that were adopted, the landscape plans that were adopted. Those are things that we are trying to get resolved.
What saddens me is that we have Silt residents expressing that the current living circumstance may prevent, maybe showing certain issues that we want to help avoid as much as we can as town board. Is there any connection while within the development of addressing this circumstance, we could have the property manager address to the town within the discussions that are on the scope of these issues and the additional issues that may be presented to us for maybe a certain period of time, just until we can hear a better report on things that reflect, ice mitigation, safety issues with, some of the major issues that are related to the pond, and, like health hazard potentially from having those ponds that way. Is there something that we can help establish, just so it's not like we will be their homeowners association? That's not what I'm proposing, but something that's just going to help ensure that the property owner is taking the safety precautions to help safeguard the health of our citizens, even if it is for a period of time, until we get, we see feedback and reports a few months down the line that those things are mediated.
And some of those issues, and it does include the pond, because the pond is part of the drainage study, and the drainage study is something that we have indicated needs to be updated, and probably ground truth as to how it's working. So some of the issues you've identified, Trustee Poston, are issues that the town is involved with. But again, what the town can do is to monitor and work on enforcement around things that are required under town code or under the zoning for the property. And many of the things that have been identified or that you've heard today fall within that purview, but there definitely are some things that are outside that.
Okay, just stay within the code limits, and as the community has voiced tonight, thank you for coming out and making the time. I know it's not easy. We all work. We all have things going on, and to take the time and be on a lengthy meeting like this says a lot of what needs to be addressed on a humane level, and a lot more so. As for being part of the board of trustees, I would like the property owners to listen, which I believe they are, and they're willing to make those corrections as well. And I appreciate the time that everyone has taken tonight to voice their opinions and to voice what's, really going on in your day by day. And we hope to continue to hear from you guys, because that's what's going to take to make, town to continue being a good little town for us all to live. So thank you so much. And we'll just keep working together closely to address those which, for someone that is just maybe a property manager that's busy on the day-to-day, not listening to the bigger impact that they are having potentially on the lives of many families, 70, which was voiced today. So let's continue to work on this and get it fixed, please.
I want to go back briefly to my original question about consistent reporting or information sharing status updates. Do the individual unit owners, do you have a representative, even semi-formally? There's a lot of people who care in the room right now.
Have a nice group.
Pick one. Like, that way we're not trying to communicate with 30 people or 70 people. Pick one or two, let's call them advocates.
I think Diana should be our representative.
Yeah, I've been one so far.
Do we?
Dana has helped so far.
Yeah, you guys can.
You've been voluntold.
And again, I'm going to put our staff on blast, but you guys can email.
Right. Do you have their contact information? Okay, so instead of us trying to distribute it to 70 or possibly 100 or more individuals who have jobs, lives, slippery, ice-covered roads and such, can we limit the scope and therefore increase the frequency and regularity of our communication with them to keep them updated, and then you can distribute it as you see fit or respond?
Yeah. And I think we do a fairly good job so far, but not everybody is on social media to know what's happening and when a meeting is, but yeah, I think we can certainly work on that.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
both of you.
So,
Is it too late to make a remark?
No, feel free to step up to the table.
I just thought of something else. Kathy Freen, River Run, Unit 10. One of the reasons I bought this cabin, I live in Florida, but I have family here, grandchildren, was the guarantee of having my beautiful strolls by the river. 3,000 feet to stroll. Guaranteed. And by the way, I am a realtor in Florida. I never dealt with a realtor. The promises that were made to me were directly by either Ray or Allen, two of the developers. So there was no slick salesman involved. I only spoke to them. To get that 3,000 square feet, because as we tried to leisurely stroll by the river, we were met with hostility from the employees of the KOA that I think are owned by the same people. That now we have a big sign. We actually can walk about 300 feet till we have a sign that says only KOA campers allowed past this point. So to keep themselves from being totally bait and switch, they install a little very slippery bridge about this wide, I'm not kidding, no railing of any kind, over a branch of the river. And they don't even have that up all the time. And we have to go over there, and sometimes they cut a path, and sometimes they don't. And this branch feeds into the main river, so if you were to fall off and get caught in that, you would end up in Mexico, I guess. But if we do not have that bridge, then we wouldn't have 300 feet that we're allowed to stroll along the river. And the second issue is,
You're fine.
wow. Okay, yes, there is hostility because a lot of the management of us, and I feel like they try to babysit us, is the KOA personnel, and they have been overtly not nice to us. And and I was hoping they would be here tonight to tell their story. They will not even take their dog to the dog park because they're afraid to. Because their dog was falsely accused of attacking another dog. They got a horrible letter. Now they're afraid that they will have their dog taken away from them. So they don't even go. It's bad. Thank you.
Thank you.
One comment I'd like to make real quick about the bus stop things. I know I've talked about whenever you guys were here. I know it's not the most direct route to the bus stop, but there is, I don't know if you guys are all familiar, if you continue on down past the Holiday Inn, you can go under the interstate. There's
No sidewalk, no walkway.
there's nothing along there between, I thought there was on the front side there.
Only for the hotel.
That's Highway
Yeah,
6.
so yeah, unfortunately, I thought for some reason that there was some sidewalk along there. I guess I haven't paid as close attention as I thought I had, because that would be, I mean, under that bridge at least is not walking over the bridge across, because obviously the bridge across I-70 that everybody drives back and forth on, there's not room there either. And unfortunately, it's not, we've talked about possibly trying to put like a walkway on one side or the other, but there's just not room, and it's a CDOT thing, and us, and something that we will continue and have been working on, but unfortunately, none of that happens fast.
I just want to comment that I'm not saying anything responsive to anything that you guys are saying, because I'm just thinking about it and I'm digesting it, and I do really appreciate everything you guys have to say. So this is certainly not over, obviously. So I really appreciate you guys coming today.
So, Mr. Mayor, there were a couple of comments brought up by the public that I would like just to give a little feedback on. So with respect to mailboxes, that is something the town is trying to work on with landowners to find a resolution to, that mailboxes get put at River Run. We've also heard that there may be issues with addressing, so having assigned addresses that the county recognizes. That is another issue we're working on that can affect getting a driver's license or registering to vote. And so those are important things, and the town is working to try and get that sorted out. There was a question about a mini storage facility, and there was an application that was filed for that, but when development is in default, we don't process additional applications. So we are trying to get the issues about River Run taken care of to where we can say no further defaults exist, so that that application for a mini storage can come before the P&Z for further review.
And to add to that, if there's drainage issues that need to be mitigated with additional space, a big reason why we haven't processed or looked at the mini storage site further is because if we do need additional parking or there does need to be additional snow storage or drainage, it might affect the ability or the amount of mini storage that can be provided. Or that's another thing for the River Run community to think about when they're thinking about amenities. That space is also where if there are additional amenities that need to take place, that's a space that would happen also.
Yeah, and to, I'm asking for clarification. Granted, it's been many years ago, but when I was on P&Z, when the issue of the storage units came up, it was said that then, when the storage units are done, that's when they would do the entrance to the tiny home. Is there any truth to that, or, you know, in terms of getting the gated entrance and everything? I thought at one time that hinged on the storage units.
It will. The current setup will not allow enough space for a gated entrance because there has to be lane widths that are met, and there has to be the ability that there's not going to be backup because that's a shared access point for Golden Gate also. So there's some things that need to be worked out with that, but it would require additional space into that northern portion of that parcel that there's proposed storage. So that would be part of that application. The gate would be a fence exemption, but part of that application, it would have to be looked at the time of application for the mini storage.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I mean, I have driven through there, and yeah, the pond has a bunch of cattails growing in it, so yeah, I have seen what a lot of these people have been talking about tonight.
Okay. All right. Are we good with wrapping this one up? So I think there's a whole slew of things that the town is going to address with the property owner. I feel that if a lot of those get addressed, it hopefully takes care of some other issues. There will be issues left over that are going to be strictly between homeowner, property owner that the town just cannot get involved with. So hopefully we can at least get to a happy medium where our citizens can enjoy their homes that they purchased. So.
And the next item on the agenda is conversation about trails, if anybody wants to stick around.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Form to speak was more or less them versus them. Okay.
That's the main one for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks again. All right. Okay, the next item on the agenda is resolution number 7, series 2025.
Shut the door.
Yeah.
Doors.
All right. So again, next item on the agenda is resolution number 7, series 2025, a resolution adopting a conceptual trail master plan for the Colorado River corridor for the town of Silt, Garfield County, state of Colorado. We'll turn this over to Manager Mann.
If we could go back to the agenda packet, there we go. And if we could blow that up at least to show the map as much as we can, that would be wonderful. As you know, we've been working on developing a conceptual trail system for the river corridor. As we've had pushback from a variety of developers in the corridor about putting the trails that were identified. And so we've been looking at not necessarily codifying, but putting a little bit more teeth behind being able to say, hey, we want these trails. Originally, there was a conceptual trail that was included in River Run that was going to run along their southern border up against the channel, the length of the property, of which, due to erosion and the way that River Run was constructed, after Director Centeno and myself walked the property, really can't build a trail in that area any longer. So part of this has been, okay, what can we do to mitigate the original intention to have trails and still get to the point where we have trails? And we have met with a variety of groups, Aspen Valley Land Trust. This past week I met with the Lower Valley Executive Director to talk about the Lova Trail. And we continue to look at our own trail system that we would potentially build out. And what we have kind of conceptually come up with is that we would have to do some island hopping to get over to the Silt River Preserve that would still put us in a position where we're going to meet the spirit of having a trail along the river, but it's going to take a little bit more logistics and gymnastics to go ahead and do. If you look at the map, Silt River Preserve owns about 40% of the Bird Island, which is the big island separating the two main channels of the Colorado River. The town owns a small section of the island that is directly south, well, about half of the island that is directly south of River Run. And so what we have surmised is that if we could cross the channel, the small channel, separating the top island with River Run, and then hop somehow over to the Bird Island and then continue south, hopping yet again over the main channel of the Colorado River, we would be able to put that trail system in. We have had some preliminary conversations with the developer on the west end of town that would redevelop Heron's Nest, that they have talked about putting sections of trail in that would require another crossing so that we ultimately could loop. Obviously, we have the trail section in south of the Holiday Inn on the river frontage, and we will be having conversations with the developer of the parcel of land known as Riverview, which is between Camp Colorado and the Holiday Inn, to extend the trail system along the river frontage. As you know, we have also had many conversations with the developers of Rislenda in terms of making the connections of the trail. The LOVA executive director is still somewhat committed to somehow working along Highway 6 in front of Coleridge High School and coming west, and then we would somehow drop probably down the 16th Street and then utilizing the underpass to connect the trail with the river. But this is just a concept. There is nothing set in stone about a concept other than it lays out in a more formalized fashion the expectations of the town. I would say that we're probably very close to being ready to pass this in a resolution. There is nothing compelling you that you have to do this evening. If there is additional discussions that you want to take place, we do have the representatives of Camp Colorado River Run here in the room tonight, which is one of the areas that we've had some difficulty in working our way through. But essentially, this is the concept as it stands right now in terms of providing that river access, the throughput of the Lova Trail, but then also the town's trail system as originally defined. I think one of the key components is to build the walkway trail on the frontage road. That should be running the entire length of all the properties so that there is that access. Obviously, that connects into the future 7th Street pedestrian bridge that would connect the north side of town with the river frontage. But obviously, we're a ways away from actually constructing that, unless somebody wants to write us a $23.4 million check. Excuse me, the update last week.
Went up 1.4 million in a week?
What?
It went from 22 to 23.4 in 1 week?
No, it was over the course of going
okay. I was
from
like, what?
zero design to 30% design.
I love this idea.
Oh, I think it's
I
great.
think it's really essential quality of life. We keep saying we want more sidewalks, we want more pedestrian traffic. Getting it to the south side is critical. That's where a lot of these big developments are coming in, have recently come in. I don't feel conflicted between developers wanting to make money and citizens having a quality of life. I think both can be accomplished. And I think setting this out sooner rather than later puts all those developers on notice. This is the standard you're building to. It's no longer a negotiation. This is the master plan. We need you to build to it. I like the idea of getting this codified sooner rather than later, for exactly the reason that we have those developers in play, if not already, very, very soon.
I totally agree.
You have the ability to adopt the resolution that has been drafted tonight, or you can delay. It's entirely up to the Board of Trustees.
I like the concept. I think it's great. I would like to see a little red line connecting the dog park. Well, that's just me.
The dog bark to what?
The Silt dog park, the island, the path.
Didn't we
that
talk?
connects that?
Didn't we talk about that last year? And there was a necessity of CDOT involvement because of it going over the bridge. Or
It's
they
a
were
county
going to be
bridge.
rebuilding the bridge, so we were awaiting that.
To put a walkway or a that would require a separate bridge. I don't believe 311 Road would similar to our overpass at the interchange, is not wide enough to put a pedestrian way on. So it would require either rebuilding or a separate bridge.
And it's part of
Yep.
the concept. Yeah.
We certainly can add that.
Well, if they rebuild it, we ask that the sidewalks be wide enough for foot and bicycle
There you
traffic.
go. Yeah.
I mean, unless someone's opposed, I mean, obviously that I come up with a vote, but verbally, just
No, I
talking
think
through
if
it, like
we,
I'd like to get this codified
agree.
tonight.
I think we should.
I think that maybe we
set the
throw something in
precedent.
there about having something connecting the dog park and whatnot as part of the concept as well.
We,
Having it as part of the concept doesn't mean it has to happen, but it means that we would like it to happen if possible.
we certainly can add it.
Yeah, I think it works out if the county ever does rebuild that bridge. It's that, we have this, so come on. We didn't just pop it on them at the last moment.
Yeah.
And really making it wide enough to either have a sidewalk side or something along there, it wouldn't add too much cost if you're rebuilding the bridge already. It's just starting over.
That didn't work as well with Rue Ranch, but let's just set that aside for the moment.
Can we approve it now and amend it later if we figure out a plan for that additional connection?
We can just approve it with that addition, asking for that addition to be made.
Yeah.
So this is a concept plan.
Right.
It's not hard lines on the ground.
Exactly.
And Jim and Nicole have done a good job at, indicating the guiding principles. So in other words, when an application for a land use comes in that Nicole reviews, she can check consistency with the guiding principles, and it's not necessarily the trail's going to be at exactly a certain space, but rather how does it measure up to the guiding principles and the lines are important, but they're not exact. Just want to make sure everybody understands that. Yeah.
Then, Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 7, series 2025 as presented.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem to adopt resolution number 7, series 2025 as presented. Second by trustee Engelhardt. All's in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And next item is manager and staff reports.
The only thing I'll add to my manager report is that, again, and it was in there, River Center is holding a golf outing on May 30th. I don't know if there are 4 town golfers that want to play.
I'd be interested in playing if they need a spot filled.
Well, does the town want to sponsor a foursome?
What do we think?
If there are 4 golfers that want to go out and chase a little white ball around a golf course, we'll sign you up.
I could not hit a golf ball if my life
I haven't
depended
swung
on
a
it,
club
so I
since
will.
2003.
I'm a hard no.
But are we okay basically with the town sponsoring one, so that way town, staff members or whatever, whoever could fill out the team out?
Can we get together 4 players?
I'm sure we can. Director Lundy and I here is a scratch golfer.
Scratch right behind the bar.
I'm fine with sponsoring it.
Okay, if
And as
if
long as
need
we've
be,
got-
I'll come out of retirement and play a round of golf. I might not be able to type for a week, but
If you need a girl, I'll play, but I'm really bad. I mean, I bring a lot of positivity to the game, but no skills.
okay, we can fill up a foursome. But Trustee Brittenell, you're interested?
Yes.
All right.
That seems like a great event.
It's a good cause too, besides being an opportunity for that.
All right, we'll go ahead and do that. After that, I will just say that we've pushed off the submittal date for the space needs analysis by a week due to a publication error of some addendum materials.
Easy enough.
How is the response in the A Street reconstruction meeting? I mean, I read the letter, but I'm just saying.
It was good. I think we've come up with some design to help people out. I mean, we're not losing a lot of parking, but we're going to gain a lot of parking. So that it was a good meeting. And, well, it should be redesigned probably in the next week and a half. Maybe at the next board meeting, we can show you the reconstructive design after that meeting.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that'd be nice.
I mean, it was a good meeting, and I think it's a positive course of action change for us when we're doing these road projects to be meeting with the people that are going to be affected so they can really see what's going on.
Well, good. I'm glad it went okay. There weren't a whole lot of pitchforks and fire and.
There, maybe were some thoughts of those things, but I think, between town's engineer, Derek Walter, Joe, myself, we were able to knock much of those down.
Nice.
I think everybody left happy.
Oh, good. That's good news.
Okay. Any other staff updates?
I did leave a picture up there for Spruce Meadows Park was complete last
Yes, that
week.
looks really nice.
That's one project done for this year.
Yeah, and that's the same, I guess, ground cover as that you're putting in everywhere else?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
New slides. We didn't replace the whole equipment. We just placed the faded out plastic and the graffitied plastic.
Oh, okay.
So it turned out well.
Nice, good job.
Any major problems with the irrigation this year?
We had a few more breaks than last year, but they've got them all fixed. Our tanks were almost half full this afternoon, so we're in good shape.
Okay. Okay. Nicole, you got anything? You had to talk a lot tonight, so.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think I'm good.
All right. Sheila or Amy, you guys have anything to add?
I do not. I do not either.
All right. Update from the board and board comments. Trustee Poston.
No comments today, Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Engelhardt.
We went to the chamber thing. That was pretty fun. That was really cool. So thanks for that opportunity. Earth Day and Arbor Day are 2 holidays, and they're both really important to me, and that's all. Thank Thank you so much.
Okay.
I also was able to attend the chamber thing. It was great. Our chair of our P&Z won an award for her community involvement throughout the valley, not just what she does here in Silt. So it was really neat to see a person like that get her just due, because she does a lot, and she wasn't expecting to win, which you could tell when she got it. They announced her, she was really excited, so that was neat to see and be a part of that. Other than that, obviously the watering and stuff, make sure you're doing it the days you're supposed to, not the days you're not. That way there's plenty of water for everybody, and everybody's stuff can be taken care of.
Okay. Trustee Clausen.
I just have one question or comment, just because it came up, in the work session. The Silt Dog Park, the information signs. We have like a half dozen businesses that don't exist on there anymore. And I didn't know if there's money in the budget to update that.
There might be. I think there is. We did pretty well on Spruce Meadows Park, so.
We'll get that taken care of.
So, that's all I have tonight.
All right, Trustee Seifert.
Was at the chamber, got down to the final four for the $600. That close?
You'd have chopped it, huh?
It was that close?
You would have split with the guy and you and the.
I probably
final
would have.
two.
I don't know. It's hard to say, but anyhow, it was a fun time for all. So, thank you very much for inviting us. That's all I got.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks to Attorney Sawyer and Nicole for all of the work on the memo and all the details, and also helping us manage the discussion with so many impacted parties, the landowner as well as the individual homeowners. I think that had the potential for pitchforks and torches, but I think largely due to all of both of your work, we prevented that and were able to hear them. So thank you. I know that was a pretty extraordinary effort to get all that done, so thank you. That's it for me.
Okay. I've got nothing this evening. Next item is adjournment.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion by Trustee Seifert to adjourn the meeting, seconded by Trustee Britnall. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, everybody.